We're back. We're back with another episode of the Spaniard Show. Except this time. Except this time it's AMXkids, and we are on AMXkids 14. AMXkids 14, studying the book, The Outsiders, bringing to you another episode of AMXkids, talking about The Outsiders. This show is for kids, but it's not just for kids. It's for their parents and teachers and mentors as well. Bear Stevens, good to see you, dude. I feel like we haven't seen each other. I feel like it's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen you here in the live streams. Good to see you, dude. Hope all is well. And yeah, I'm finding much enjoyment out of reading the book, The Outsiders. It's my first time reading it. It struck a chord with a lot of people, but for me, never read it. And it is really stinking cool because it brings me back to that time. Brings me back to that time. You know, that confusing time that is middle school and high school. All right, so quick reminder to, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Spaniard Show. Please do so by hopping on iTunes and or whatever podcast app you use. Enable notifications here, charliespaniard.com, Facebook.com/CharlieSpaniard to get a heads up whenever I go live, because I go live a lot. All right, let's get this cranking. One more sip of agua. Quick little one. Let's go for it. 1, 2, 3. Hello, my young friends, and welcome back to another episode of AMXkids. This is AMXkids 14. The book we're currently reading is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And this show is not just for you youngsters, middle-agers, give or take a few years either way of that coin, but it's also for your parents, your teachers, and your mentors. So if there's something that you take from this and you think, wow, yeah, mom, dad, teacher, coach, this is really good. I like to talk about this thing that I heard this guy, the Spaniard, talk about. Bring it to them. Use this. I'm going to talk about the value and the importance of talking. Use AMXkids. Use these books. Use my take on these books to create conversation with the mentors and the leaders and the role models in your life, and vice versa. Older folks like myself, use these episodes, use these books, use the wealth of, I'm just going to say, greatness that's in these books. Use it to create valuable, meaningful conversation with the young people in your life, the young people that you and I and the rest of us are trying to shape and move in the right direction. So last week we got into the book. We gave you a little bit of the history of S.E. Hinton. The author wrote this book when she was 16 years old, and it was, quote, to deal with problems I had to face and write my way to some sort of understanding and coping. So that's what we're talking about here with The Outsiders. That's what this book is about. Spartan race. You may have heard of the Spartan race. It's on TV sometimes. It's obstacle racing. It's a long race out in the mountain with a bunch of obstacles that you have to run over, crawl over, jump over, climb over, etc. And the whole point of Spartan is to help you deal with life's obstacles. So in a way, that's what this book, and for me, reading in general, does for me. That's what it helps me do. It helps me make sense of my world. It helps me sift through my world. It helps me get the things that I want in my world. So above everything, I want to highlight that point. That is the value of reading. Does it take work? Yeah. Does it happen right in front of you? No. You actually got to sit down and do the thing, but you got to do the thing to feel the way, right? You got to read the book to get what's inside the book. Let's start with AMXkids 14. Last week we learned a little bit about our main character, Ponyboy. He sticks out. You know, there are two social groups involved in the book, the Greasers and the Socias. And Ponyboy sticks out, even amongst his group, even amongst the Greasers. Ponyboy sticks out. He loves to read books. He loves to go to the movies. He's kind of an outcast within his own group. Hence the term of the book, The Outsiders. He feels isolated from the rest of the group, even his group. And he has a group of friends that he runs around with. So leading into The Outsiders episode number 2, today's episode. So Ponyboy and his buddies meet a few girls at the movies, and these girls are socias. And remember, what's going on in this book is there's two groups, and they don't get along. Think of the groups you have in your school. I'm thinking back to middle. You know what? I was going to say I'm thinking back to middle school. I don't even have to think back to middle school. I can think present day. In the world, in the grown-up world, there are groups. Whether it's politics, it doesn't matter what it is. There's groups. And we're isolated from each other. And I'm going to talk later on about the value of conversation. But for now, let's get back to Ponyboy and his buddies at the movies. So they meet these girls at the movies, and they're socias. And they end up hanging out and talking. All right? So they go to the movies. Imagine this. They're sitting down. How about that when you go to the movie theater? How about that when they pour the soda and it's like, tss, and it sounds so good. It sounds so good. But anyway, they're at the movie theater. They sit down. They start talking. And at first they're like, oh, you're a social. I'm a greaser. We can't talk. But what happens is eventually they start talking. The ice is broken. And what they realize, they start to learn about each other. They start to learn, actually converse, communicate, talk to the other person. And they start to learn about the other person rather than what they thought of the other person. So think that out for a second. They learn about how that person really is versus carrying these ideas of what they thought they were. So in the books, in the context of the books, you're a soc, you're different than me, I'm a greaser, we're different, we can't talk, we can't communicate. But then once they start to actually learn about each other, they realize, hey, you're not exactly like I thought you were. You're a little bit different. And they even, I'm going to get into talking here soon, they even realize, hey, we have some commonalities, some things in common. So Cherry, the girl that he met, Cherry says this to Ponyboy, quote, I'll bet you think the socias haven't made. We have troubles you've never even heard of. Things are rough all over. So listener, have you ever thought there and sat there and thought to yourself, I have it so bad, everything's so bad, no one else knows what I'm going through, those people over there are so lucky, those people have it all. Newsflash. Nobody has it all. Just like Cherry says, I'll bet you think the socias haven't made. We have troubles you've never even heard of. Things are rough all over. In one way or another, let's go back to those obstacles and challenges that I was talking about. In one way or another, everyone is dealing with some sort of obstacle or challenge or some sort of adversity, something tough going on in their lives. Yeah, some people have more of it than others, but the lesson I want to drive home here is this idea of empathy. I've talked about this word in past episodes, but the idea of empathy. Empathy is understanding another person, understanding another person's thoughts and feelings and perspective, right? That's another word we can look at, their perspective. Why they think the way they think. As a greaser, Cherry is learning, Ponyboy thinks the way he thinks as a greaser because he grew up in a household, that wasn't the best household, because his friends are getting in trouble, because they feel like they have to put up this front of toughness in order to get through their world. So what happens here is there's some empathetic learning. Empathy, again, simply means just understanding the other person's feelings and emotions and actions. There's this empathetic learning going on between Ponyboy and Cherry. And they start to realize, oh, hey, we have a little bit more in common than we thought we did. Ponyboy goes on to say this, it seemed funny to me that socias were just like us. There was a basic sameness. So that group or that person or that boy or that girl that's on the other side of the school, on the other side of the tracks, on the other side of whatever you want to call it, you might think to yourself, wait a minute. Ponyboy and Cherry, the greasers and the socias, got to talking and they realized, hey, we have something in common. So maybe, just maybe, you might have something in common with the other person. Or at least you can empathetically learn about the other person so you can understand them. I want to give you a personal story about this in action. So many years ago, I was a Spanish teacher, and as part of being a Spanish teacher, I traveled overseas. And I went to Spain one summer. And on my way back from Spain, I missed a flight in France. And that's a story in and of itself. But I ended up missing a flight. Okay? So I was in France overnight. And I ended up, by way of meeting some people, I ended up going out that night with a bunch of Frenchmen. A bunch of young people my age who were from France. And at that time, there was some political differences between French people in the United States, right? Stuff that we don't even need to talk about right now. So what it was there were these French young people, and there were me, who seemingly were two very different types of people from two very different places. And what we realized once we actually started talking and hanging out was, hey, I'm a young person, you're a young person, you like to go out and have fun, I like to go out and have fun, we're friends, let's go out and have fun. So that was kind of a real life story or a real life example of this idea of empathetic learning, perspective, understanding where the other person comes from. And to be honest, it all started with simple conversation. Let's carry that into the next point. Let's segue into the next point in the value of talking. So Pony and Cherry were talking about their differences, okay? Talking, communication. You think someone's different than you? How about, hi, my name's Spaniard. What's your name? Boom. That's how easy it is to start conversation. So Pony and Cherry are talking about their differences, and they identify their values as being different. This is another vocab word I want to throw out there. Values. Core values. So through conversation, Cherry and Pony Boy realize, hey, the values of a greaser, the values of a soc, they're very different. And that's why you and I think differently, speak differently, act differently, etc. So what is a value? If you're in a classroom or a group setting right now, hit pause. Facilitator, teacher, whomever, leader, ask that question. What is a value? Or if I would say to you, what is a core value? Define the word core value. What would you say? Okay, spoiler, I'm going to give you the answer now. Values are one's principles or standards of behavior or what you see as important in life. Let's simplify it like that. It is what you see as important in life. And what you see as important, it affects your standards of behavior. It affects the things that you think, the things that you feel, and the things that you say. So for me, what are my values? Very simply and very quickly, we have family, we have learning, we have teaching, and we have training. Okay, so those are what's important to me. My family is important to me. Learning is important to me. Teaching is important to me. Training is important to me. So based on my values come my actions. Okay, so you can see how your values are linked to your actions. So Cherry says this about the socias. She says that the socias are always in a rat race. They're never satisfied. They always want more. She goes on to say, quote, socias were always behind a wall of aloofness, careful not to let their real selves show through. So she said that they would say things that they don't mean. So you're in middle school. I know I was in middle school. And to be honest, this happens so much when you're outside of middle school, when you're in the grown-up world, right? When you're an old head like me, 37 years old. People say things they don't really mean. They want to put up a front. They want to make believe that they are a certain way, or they think or they feel a certain way. She said that they were in the rat race. They were never satisfied. They always wanted more. They were behind a wall of aloofness, careful not to let their real selves show through. I want to give you a piece of advice. And this is a piece of advice that I was told from a young age. It's a piece of advice that Mr. Rogers, or the modern day equivalent Daniel Tiger, one of my favorite quotes of all time comes from Mr. Rogers. And Mr. Rogers says, one of the greatest gifts you can give anybody is the gift of your honest self. So if you find yourself maybe a little bit timid or afraid to show your true values, to show what's really important to you, consider that quote again. One of the greatest gifts you can give anybody is the gift of your honest self. When I'm recording these shows, this is my honest self. Does everyone love it? No. Does everyone care about reading and learning? No. Do I care? No. Because I love it. And that's my honest self. And I believe in the mission of lifelong learning. I believe in the power of reading books. So if you're sitting there and you feel this unrest, understand, again, one of the greatest gifts you can give anybody is the gift of your honest self. There is no one on this earth as unique as the you. You are the only you on this entire planet, so you be the best you that you can be. You got all that, folks? I hope so. Moving on, I want to talk and further highlight the importance of talking and the importance of discussion. So Ponyboy's frustration early and midway through the book, it's growing and growing. He's at conflict even within his own group. Like I said earlier, he likes to read books. He likes to watch videos. He kind of sticks out even amongst his closest friends. Then there's these social groups, these differing groups that have conflict with each other, the socias, the greasers. So he's getting very, very frustrated with his own personal struggles, his group struggles, etc. He says, quote, "It wasn't fair for the socias to have everything. I felt," this is the important thing here, "I felt the tension growing inside of me, and I knew something had to happen or I would explode." I felt the tension growing inside of me, and I knew something had to happen or I would explode. Have you ever been sitting there and you just feel so much tension inside yourself? Whether it's confusion about your friends, maybe picking up drugs and or alcohol. Maybe it's confusion about a relationship. Maybe you feel tension growing inside of you because of your home life, your home situation. Maybe you feel tension growing inside of you because you fell short of one of your lifetime goals. All of those are relevant to me. As I'm saying them, I'm giving you examples from my past, right? I felt the tension growing inside of me, and I knew something had to happen or I would explode. What is that something? It can be a simple conversation. If you feel that tension inside of you and you feel like you want to explode, one of the most valuable things you can do is talk. That's it. Simply talk. Teachers, talk to your teacher. Talk to your friends. Talk to your parents. Talk to your coaches. Find someone in a leadership role, some sort of a role model. Could be an older sibling even. I know present day, I'm 37. My siblings are 40 to 45. I still talk to them. I still ask my parents for advice. I still talk to Dredd on a regular basis. I ask my wife for advice. I ask for advice or I ask for an empathetic listener many, many times, probably many, many times a day. So if you feel yourself in that area, please consider talking. Talking can alleviate that tension that you feel within yourself. And I want to end this episode with a mathematical equation. And if you're anything like me, mathematical equations were not your strong suit. I was not the best in math. I wasn't even the second best or the third or the fourth best. I was mediocre in math. But this is a cool equation. It's not really like number math. But this is a cool equation that I want to throw at you that I hope you write down. Again, if you're in a group setting, hit pause. After I say it, write it on the board and see if you can figure it out before I explain it. So the equation of this, and I got this from a guy named Jack Canfield, who wrote the book, The Success Principles. Teachers, coaches, administrators that are listening, you should read that book, Success Principles. Also, he wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul series. But the equation is this: E plus R equals O. E plus R equals O. Write that down. What does it mean? Event plus response equals outcome. This ties into the frustration, the events that were happening in Ponyboy's life, the events that are happening in your life, the events that happen in my life are happening in my life on a daily basis. Event plus response equals your outcome. You can't control the event. You can control the response, and therefore you can control the outcome. E plus R equals O, event plus response. How you respond to these challenges and obstacles that you're experiencing in your life will determine the outcome of the situation. It will determine where you go in life. This has been AMXkids 14, studying the book The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Kids, grown-ups, read books. There's so much wisdom. There's so much power. There's so much fulfillment in these books, whether it's The Outsiders or whether it's one of the probably 80 other books I have on my website, charliespaniard.com/reading list. Please consider reading. Kids, if you'd like to interact with me on social media, please contact me. I love geeking out about books. So if you're like Ponyboy and you're saying to yourself, I love to read books and watch movies, but nobody likes to talk about them. I do. I want to talk about these books with you, especially if they're the books that I'm studying and teaching on my show. So please contact me at Charlie Spaniard. on social media. And if you'd like to bring the old Spaniard to your school, tell your coach, your teacher, your administrator to visit charliespaniard.com/booking, and let's get it set up, because trust me, I want to bring my whole satchel of books, and I want to get on stage, and I want to talk about the power of lifelong learning. I hope to see you all next week. Remember, new episodes of AMX Kids come out every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Next week, we'll be studying more of The Outsiders. I'll see you then. And, until then, start reading a book. See ya. There we go. All right, folks. I'll see you back tomorrow morning for AM Excellence 578. Have a great rest of the day. See ya.